come over, and then the timing was so perfect right now. I just like jumped on it because it's like, yeah, let's do this.
Heck yeah. I've been trying to get you on for a while.
Well, you've been just trying to get us over and hang out.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate it, man.
Theo Chesley, welcome to the Pirate.
Pleasure to be here, John.
So, how did you get into flying?
I always wanted to fly.
Yeah?
Since an early age.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was a passion for me. I mean, I drew airplanes.
Yeah.
Wanted to be, a jet driver and all that, and ended up in Alaska when I was 11. And I had a stepbrother that had 2 airplanes living in a small village out in the Aleut Peninsula. Yeah. And so he sort of started teaching me to fly, which was amazing. And basically, that was the only way to get around. So as I, became from 11 into my teens, if you were going to get a girlfriend and had to leave that village, there was only one way to do it. You had to go get an airplane to do this. But I actually didn't get my pilot's license till I was 22 years old. Really? And I had about 100 hours, and maybe a little bit more, about 200. I had my instrument, and actually, I didn't have my commercial yet, so I bought an airplane in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 182. Yeah. And I flew it all the way to Seattle, and I flew it up the Alcan, and somehow survived, which was awesome, and made it to Anchorage, and ended up bringing it back to Nelson Lagoon, where I'd grown up. And the beauty of Nelson Lagoon was it was one of the North Peninsula villages, and we weren't far from Pilot Point, where Orrin Siebert's got to start. Old pilots like Ace Gretchen and even Glenn Allsworth had some ties there too. So we were in good company. There was a lot of great bush pilots that were in Nelson Lagoon that had made names for themselves. So I had a pretty good crowd to learn from. Yeah. So that was nice. And then through the years, of course, Orrin Siebert started Pen Air, and he showed up many times in the village. And so we had, we had some good stock to learn from and to use as our mentors. I knew Glenn Allsworth since I was a small boy, and ended up becoming great friends with him and flying side by side with him in later years. But as a kid, I would show up in a 207 in a blizzard, and he would go, "Who's this kid?" and Tim Laporte, Iliamna Air, same thing. I'd show up in Iliamna flying phone guys around, which was normally their gig. Yeah. Who's flying these guys around now? He shows up in a 207 in a blizzard. This is not a good idea. I didn't think nothing of it because that's the way we grew up. Yep. But thinking back, cutting my chops in a 182 out there, and I can still remember days where you were hugging the beach. Oh yeah. In the fog, in the snow, in the blizzard, or whatever. Really didn't have anywhere to go to, but you were just out there playing with that weather because you knew at some point you would have to fly in it anyway. So better to have some experience in it than get into it with no experience. Yeah. And this was the problem with Alaska. Back in the day, if you didn't have time, you couldn't get time because nobody would cut you loose. Right. So you basically had to buy your own airplane to get Alaska time. So a lot of times, now things have changed. You had to have 500 hours Alaska time, not to mention the rest of the time you had. Wow. Just to, try to go fly for somebody or even get insured. Wow. For that fact, it was tough. But somehow I talked somebody into insuring the airplane, and I had about 200 hours and got that airplane and flew it for 500 or 600 and ended up buying a 180. The 182 was a great airplane, but of course I wanted the 180. Yeah. And I won't tell you, there was an old mechanic at Merrill Field, and he told me why I wanted the 180, but I'm not going to mention that part of it. But it was something to do with bigger stature. We'll leave it at that, okay? Yeah. Great guy by the name of Ben Merrill.
Yeah.
Still does T&B aircraft out there, I believe, during the summers.
Nice.
He's kind of a legend. But anyways, he was doing the maintenance on there. When I told him I was buying the 180, he says, "Oh, I know why." But anyways, so I got into a 180, had no tail dragger time.
Yeah.
So my training flight was on the taxiway of Anchorage International. I asked the tower, or asked ground if I could do a high-speed taxi. That's how I cut my teeth. Took the airplane in the middle of January and left at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to go back to Nelson Lagoon. Didn't show up there till dark, after dark. But there was enough moon, by the grace of God. I made some horrible decision making. Horrible decision making. I can't remember how it all worked out, but there were some people who knew we were coming, so that they put some lights on the runway. And
Nice.
so that 180 was a beautiful airplane. I probably put a couple thousand hours on it.
Yeah.
But it was a better airplane than I was a pilot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because that airplane got me out of a lot of binds. I didn't have any tail dragger time. I had very little Alaska time, but I wanted to get out and do it. So I did. And, the airplane was such a good flying airplane and took care of me that it got me out of some binds where normally it probably shouldn't have, but I survived again, and that was good. So that was a great airplane, and I owned that for quite a number of years. And about 1998, I started flying in 86, so now I've got 40 years under my belt, about 22,000 hours.
Wow.
That first 1,000 hours was the hardest, that was the longest first 1,000 hours ever.
Yeah.
God, took forever. And then I ended up with a couple thousand, and about 1998, my wife was she got pregnant and money got tight, and I said, well, we're going to have to sell the airplane, which I cried when we sold the airplane. It was part of the family.
Yeah.
That airplane had been so good to us. And so I sold the airplane, and about 10 minutes after that, I got a phone call from one of the air taxi operators that says, I'm just going to park an airplane there. You're going to take a check ride for me, and you're going to work for me. So I lost one airplane and inherited 9. I had 185s, 180s, 206s, 207s, twins to play with, anything I wanted. And I could have them all in the same day. It was amazing. So I ended up being a part-time pilot that ended up being a full-time pilot, ended up being a chief pilot, and ended up buying the air taxi certificate after about 19 years.
Wow.
I flew that gig. And the problem was the original air taxi was a summertime thing. So I said, well, let me take it during the winter. Let's see what we can do. And it was pretty amazing because by then I had some chops, and people trusted me to fly. And the big thing about the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians is that when people know you and they know that you've flown in the weather and that you've taken really good care of people, well, they begin to have some trust in you. And not blind trust, but maybe a little bit. You're still, everybody's vulnerable, and everybody can make mistakes, so you have to be extra careful. And you don't want to screw up and have that tied to your name. So, by the grace of God again, and a lot of flights that we did in some of the worst weather, we created a name for ourselves, and we turned that little air service into a pretty big air service, and it was the go-to in the Alaska Peninsula for many, many years. And after 19 years, the owner decided wanted to get out of the business, so I decided, well, probably should have did it 5 years earlier or 10 years earlier, but I said, well, we'll go ahead and buy it and see what we can do. So we got rid of the original equipment and upgraded to the Navajos and some good aircraft, and put the money and the time into the planes to make sure that they were something solid. Some of the problems with the, flying down the Aleutians is that some of the carriers come down there, and I'm not saying their equipment is bad or not up to snuff, because it is, but unless you know what you're getting into down there. You got to put the money there. You can't wait for something to break. If it even looks like it's going south, you need to get rid of it and put some new, whatever it needs, new parts, engines, anything. Just put the money in, because you're going to lose it later.
Yeah, you lose it on the opportunity cost.
Exactly.
You shut down for 2-3 days, that it may only cost you a couple $1,000s to fix it, but you've lost tens of thousands of dollars.
Absolutely.
In potential earnings.
Yeah, and the problem is down there, if you have an issue, it's not 2 or 3 days. You could run into weeks.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have somebody sent down there to work on that airplane, or get it, or wait for a part that has to be ordered.
Yep.
My philosophy is, you make sure you have it, and if you don't have it, you make sure it's on the shelf.
Yep.
And available. Just spend the money up front. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't. But, we've been really successful with what we're doing. So, going back to buying the certificate, which was originally Kenai Float Plane Service, which is established in 1959. We have one of the oldest air taxi 135 certificates in the state.
Oh, wow.
I believe Spurnack Air is the only older one. We're like 1 and 2.
Nice.
So we bought a piece of history, which was nice. Just a little bit of retrospect on that. Don Johnson, which was the original owner of Kenai Float Plane, which I bought it from his son, Warren Johnson, which was my mentor and hired me. But I knew Don from when I was a small child and up until he died. And Don was a great guy. Polar bear, he pioneered all the bear hunting, the polar bear stuff. I mean, he was one of the big players in the state. So how Kenai Float Plane Service was born, because of the hunting, the need to have the air service and an air taxi to, associate with it. But a great story with him was, before I started flying for Warren, which was his son, and he was up in age a few years before he died, and he was actually in Nelson Lagoon for a funeral. And of course, I had a brand new 180, and I'm like strutting around, and not full of myself, but I got a little pep in my step.
Oh, yeah.
And Don's sitting there, and he's pretty withered and pretty old, but he's still sharp as a fox. And I said, "Hey, how's it going, Don?" We shook hands and we were talking. I'm going, "Well, I got this 180 down there," and he looked at me, and those beady eyes, and he looked at me and says, "Okay, well, you be careful." I'll never forget that. He knocked down there, and I knew exactly what he meant. Yeah, he was an amazing guy, total living legend.
Yeah.
Him and Orrin and all these guys that started this whole show down there, they were the guys.
Yeah.
And there were sometimes he had a radial otter would go into some camp with a whole building, and 10 days later the building would be up, and that'd be the new lodge. That's what these guys used to do. Wow. Just incredible. So yeah, it was amazing. But anyways, going back to the story, when I bought the air taxi and started Precision Air, and we got lucky and got a nice Navajo, and had to put some work and some time and some love into it, but we got things up and running, and we had a lot of help from the FAA. I had known check airmen for years from them, so they knew me, they knew what we did, and knew where we were flying, so they had some respect. So they pretty much greased the path, and we got it going. And it wasn't pretty, but we got it up and running, and it's been successful, and we've been trying. It's air taxi around the state of Alaska is a strange bird. There's just a lot of angst about what's going to happen and how everything's going to play out. And you're always chasing it. You're always, trying to make it happen, getting on that phone, drumming up the business. Some of the business just falls right in your lap. Yep. And then there's other times where you're just wondering, why isn't the phone ringing? Is my phone working? Yeah. Is there something wrong with my phone? Yep. And then your buddy will call you and go, "Hey, your phone doesn't work." Oh, that's nice. Thank you, GCI. Oh, sorry. Not to mention any names on the podcast, but boy, that can be a problem.
Yeah.
So, you're always wondering, and you're trying to make it happen.
Yep.
And it becomes a lifestyle. These things, and as you know, as a charter pilot, this grind that you get into, and we're getting it done. It's doable. It's not going to be pretty. We go in there and we get it done. But you know what? It's like I said, it becomes this lifestyle, and then you probably wouldn't have it any other way, because when you don't have it, you feel like lost. It's like, God, I gotta fly. I gotta go do something.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like, what's happening there? I gotta run to King Cove.
Yeah.
It's only blowing 32 in there. Hey, it's a nice day. Let's
Beautiful
go.
day, yeah.
Hey, it's 32 and bumpy. Let's go. Not the normal 40 plus.
Oof. It does get a little spicy.
No, I know, and you've experienced that. So
Oh, yeah.
you have a pretty good idea of what goes on, and that's just, other parts of the state may not be as violent in that, but it's still that same genre, the same MO. It's the, let's go get this gun, and some guys are better at it than others. Some companies live off of EAS and they fly when they want, and others have to go get after it and get it done.
Yep.
And one thing that always, goes through my mind, a good friend of ours, Craig Emery, as you know, and he got the Wilbur Wright Award, and that was a great get together over at the Alaska Airmen's Museum. And, he started talking about all the times he had gone in, and, and there would always be that one flight where he had to go get it done because there was some sick baby. Yep. And he would get it done. But, the thing that crossed my mind was the thousands of very professional airmen that have flown the state of Alaska that's done that exact same thing. And you'll never get the image out of your head about the mother when you land that airplane and damn near whiteout, and they get that sick baby on there, and you get them to where they're going, and the gratefulness that lady has because you saved her baby. And the thousands of airmen that will never get credit for that. Craig got it because he's a 40,000-hour pilot and a beautiful person, great pilot, just one in a million. But there's so many more out there that does not get that credit. And I wanted to mention that night. I didn't get a chance to get up and speak, but I wanted to give everybody credit, because there's so many guys like yourself that would put their lives on the line to go save that baby, or to go save that sick child, or to go save that woman that might be in labor when the medevac's not going in there. Nobody's going in there. You know who's going in there? We're going in there. We're going to go get them. And the outcome, you very rarely will you hear about something like that goes south on you, as in an accident. Normally they'll get it done. You know why? Because they're just that good. These guys that fly around the state they're good. And that is something that I cherish, growing up on that northern beach of that peninsula, not being far from Pilot Point, and the guys like Orrin and Glenn and all these guys that I got to grow up with. And everybody's vulnerable, everybody can make mistakes, and there's sometimes when somebody else doesn't do their job that you end up having a problem about it, and it happens. But everybody's out there trying to do their best, be the best professional they can, while juggling 19 other things, like their family life, like they're this, or maybe a divorce or this, and we still go out and we go do it every day, and that is something people don't realize. So, we're always trying to put up that face, and a good friend of mine who was a stewardess on Alaska Airline, great lady, grew up in the Kodiak area, but when she got hired on to Alaska Airlines, and I'll always remember this, she says, I'm going to treat my last customer of the day like I do my first. And that's huge, because that is something that I live by. Just because at the end of the day, it's been a long one and all that, you still have people to take care of. You still got to make them feel comfortable, and especially when you're down on the Alaska Peninsula, because a lot of people are scared to fly.
Oh, yeah.
And you know this.
A lot of people that live down there have been in an accident, and they have a good reason to be scared to fly.
Not to mention, look where they live.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
They've
when
seen
you
the
have an
weather.
airport surrounded by 3 sides of terrain and it's all mountains and the bays intersect and create just crazy winds, and I get it. So when you're loading people up and you're putting them, I mean, you're trying to make them feel as comfortable as they can. So, you know, a touch to the shoulder, make sure their belt's secure, tell them, okay, guys, it's gonna be a little bit bumpy out of here, but I'm gonna do my best to make this as comfortable as I can. And over the years, you learn where to go, where not to go. And, you know, then there's just some days where I'll get out of the airplane when it's just that bad. And I'll just say, look, everybody, if you want to go home and just not do this, that's fine. Don't even worry about it. I'm not even worried about it. I'll just take the airplane home and we'll do it another day. I'm here now. If you want to get on the airplane, I'll make sure we get to where we're going. But if you're uncomfortable with it, just don't worry about it. Don't act like that's going to be a bother to me. I would rather have you more comfortable in driving home and having a cup of coffee than getting in this airplane and getting the crap bounced out of you. And, you know, for the first 5 minutes, and then I'm going to go find some calm air and we're going to be fine. But that's unnerving to passengers. So that's the part where you start to build this, you know, culture of safety and comfortable with your passengers. And that's what builds your business. So because they know they're going to come, you're going to come in there, and if it's just not doable, they know they can go home. But you've been doing it all these years, so 9 times out of 10 they get on the airplane, we'll go get them to where they're going, and we'll try to make it as good as we can. And most of the time it's like, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I said, well, I'm glad you thought so, because I sure didn't. I thought we were going to get slammed, but yes, we got lucky. So, and you've been down this road, John. I mean, you know, as many times as you've been in Falls Pass, King Cove, and that whole Alaska, and you know, I've flown all over the state, and you know, King Cove, and then that's my backyard, so I'm used to that. I go to Kodiak, I'm scared out of my mind. That place is, on a calm day, will just kick your ass. And Kodiak's a horrible spot. A beautiful island. But for flying and turbulence and, you know, really understanding how that whole weather pattern works in there, you really got to have a lot of chops to do there. So anybody says they flew Kodiak, they fly my airplanes all day long. And I know a lot of Kodiak pilots, and I understand, you know, how they got their chops. And then, but on the same token, they said, "Why you flying on the peninsula? Oh my God, that place is horrible." Well, okay. But you know.
The devil you know versus the devil you don't.
And that's the other thing that I would put forth to any new pilot in Alaska. If you're flying in Alaska and you're going into new territory or a new airport, that will be your worst enemy. You better pay attention, and you better raise your bar on your weather. You need to go in there 10, 15, 20 times before you even begin to think that you know what you're doing in there. And, you know, that's another thing I've done. And I've been in Lake Clark Pass in the worst of weather and had to turn around in there. Should have never been there. Was there, lived to tell about it. And I've been in whiteouts. I've been out of some airport trying to get home and getting dark with huge squalls, and in a 207 in the dark, 10,000 feet, trying to find some VFR to go find somewhere where I could land. And I sort of had a plan in the back of my head where I'm going. It's not what I wanted to do, but where I ended up. But of course, I had friends in some destination that we, you know, went to. But I mean, that's the problem. And that they say down, you know, on the peninsula, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. And that's, you know, kind of is. And it's all about timing. Timing is everything down there, as you well know. You go somewhere, you know, it's gusting 45, and 10 minutes later, the wind went down to 20. You know, just after you left. Well, of course it did.
Of course.
Because I was in there and brought the wind with me, and then I left, and then it calmed down, and it was much nicer. You know, and I've also seen that, you know, and that's the scary thing about it, sometimes when there is an accident, and heaven forbid when there is or when there was, because it's not a great thing, but 6 hours after the weather got nice, or the next day. And if they could have just waited a little longer. But we don't know that. We don't have that crystal ball. We're, according to us, the weather's going to get worse, so we got to get it done now.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you're only as good as your equipment. So you need to keep that in mind, especially you, John. I'm not kidding. I tell this to Aaron and the guys all the time. I said, I don't care what you're driving. You're not immune to anything.
Yep.
So, just make sure, you got all that horsepower, you got all that, but just make sure you're paying attention. Yep. Because there's going to be that day when some of that equipment might fail on you. So.
The best, I heard it put this way recently, its capability is your skill times your equipment.
Sure.
So you can have all the skill in the world, but if you're in a 150 with three instruments out of your 6-pack that don't work, then it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
You can't go do that
and
stuff.
incredibly underpowered.
Yeah.
So no, you're right. And that's the thing, and that's the other thing. You could have perfectly good aircraft and lose 3 systems on the way. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden you're fighting stuff that or all of a sudden you get into some ice and you find out your heated windshield's not working, or your boots or one boot's taking a crap and the other hasn't. So now you got one good wing, one bad wing. What could go wrong with that plan? And you've seen accidents in the state, and I'll never Monday morning quarterback because you were not there. No. You're not. But in my mind, if you're having an issue with ice, and I can remember, as a kid, asking a 747 Flying Tigers pilot coming out of Coal Bay, Alaska, in a old YS-11, he says, I'm telling him as a young child, I'm gonna go fly in the ice and all that. And he goes, there's a little thing up there called a temperature gauge. He says, I want you to make sure you watch that. And the old pros, it says, if you're in the airplane and you're getting in the ice, get out of the ice. Do not stay in the ice. So, and these are all wonderful little tidbits. And it's amazing where you can't remember where your keys are, but you sure remember all those little tidbits over the 4 decades you've been flying, because that's all the stuff that keeps you alive. Yep. And, that's an amazing thing. So, all this stuff, you try to get your encyclopedia and keep storing it away for that one day where you're going to need to pull from all that information to try to make it work, because you are going to get in a situation where you're going to probably get rattled and you're going to have to dig really deep.
So I was looking at some research on, the research wasn't about airline captains, but they used airline captains along with ER surgeons, and I forget who else, but critical, highly skilled, high stakes operators that they were studying. And essentially the way that airline captains and the other operators deal with emergencies is they're not actually thinking through all of the different ways to handle it. It's pattern matching. So you see something go wrong and you're just matching to a pattern, because you absolutely have to do away with all of the extra stuff in your mind, all of the extra possibilities, all of the extra, the superfluous shit that you don't need in that moment. You need to get rid of that, and you need to pattern match accurately and precisely in a very timely manner, and get down to a point where you can deal with the situation while you still have options. And so that idea of creating a cache of wisdom, just a bank of all of the different things that you've learned and have been taught, because you can't make all your own mistakes.
No, you got to learn from others.
You have to.
The problem with that is, and you're exactly right. And if we have the luxury to pull from all that information when we do have an emergency, the problem is we're gonna have to pull from our skills and our training.
Yep.
And when you get into a situation, say lose an engine, lose two engine, if you're in a 4-engine turboprop such as the C-130 and you lose two engines, you got your hands full. You lose one engine in a cabin class twin, you have your hands full. If you're in flight and you're in cruise, well, then you have a little bit more time to think about it. But if you're in the most critical part of the flight, say at rotation or just on your initial climb out, you're going to have to do some real pilot shit.
Yep.
You're going to have to think about it quicker than you can. You almost don't have enough time to react.
Right.
But you have to go to everything that you know to either save the aircraft, save your passengers. And if you can't do that, then you're thinking about, okay, where am I going to put this aircraft to make sure we're all going to walk away? Because there may be, you're at full gross, you lose one, depending on the time of day, the wind, all that, there's so many factors that can, and a simple thing like cowl flaps could screw you up.
Yep.
My cowl flaps are still open. Well, you're sitting there caging an engine and trying to figure out, you got your fuel, but you got all this stuff going through your head trying to, okay, why is my engine not doing what it's supposed to be?
Right.
And a simple thing like cowl flaps creating a little bit of drag could be the make or break.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
You haven't got that far yet. You're still up here when you got a problem down here that could be helping with aerodynamics. And I've been down this road. Go ahead.
So, sorry, just to explain for people who may not know, cowl flaps are a little vent that comes out of the bottom of the engine cowling on piston aircraft that allows additional air to flow over or around the engine during periods of low airspeed and high power, such as a climb out or takeoff.
In climbs, and it also creates a lot of, not a lot of drag, but some drag. Enough to wreck some of your aerodynamic configuration.
Absolutely.
When you're on one engine.
Right.
Then that's your problem. Two engines is not a problem at all. You got full thrust, but you've just lost half your horsepower.
And about 70% of your performance, somewhere around in there.
Thank you for depressing me, John. Because you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't lose half, you lost more than half.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of the professionals have told me, and piston turbine engine drivers, the most dangerous phase of your flight is on rotation and when you grab that gear handle. And you lose one there, I don't care what you're flying. If you're flying a King Air and you got turbine, you got, 850 aside horsepower, you have some options. But when you're flying 700 horsepower total and you lose 350 horsepower of it, and if it's catastrophic, now it's not only creating drag, it's hurting you because the engine's no more thrust, and now you have drag. So you have to be that fast to try to cage that engine, which means you have to feather it, shut it down, get it to where it's not creating any problem for you as far as flying the aircraft. You already got a problem. You lost half your horsepower. So, and you and I have both flown plenty of Navajos. We both know, and that's the beauty of getting into the airliners, the King Airs, the 100s, the 200s, the 350s, and essentially at some point you may be into turbojets. You have all the added horsepower, which is added safety. And
horsepower is safety.
That's why a lot of the carriers in Alaska, not only there, but in the United States, everybody has switched to turboprop aircraft. But turboprops come with a price.
They do.
And that's the problem. A lot of people don't have the entry cost. Not only that, with the shorter routes that a lot of the carriers do in Alaska, the turboprop does not set itself up for that. The piston engine twins are much more suitable, especially with the rougher conditions on the airstrips, the gravel. The loads are more adapt for that. Not you don't need all that weight carrying ability. You need to go take 5 people and some bags. I mean, you can almost do that in a 207. Right. But twin engine adds, added reliability. A lot of these places you're over water, so the twin engine is mandatory. Yeah. So, you have all these factors factoring into why people fly what they do. A lot of it is you become a victim of your own environment. And, what I mean by that is that first of all, flying a King Air 100 or 200 on a 45-mile hop just does not make sense forth and back. Or a 150-mile hop forth and back, because you're just, it's just too much aircraft for that. And your revenue will not generate enough to warrant owning that caliber of aircraft. Would we like to be flying that? Oh, hell yeah, we would be. Is it going to pay the bills? Probably not. We're going to go broke real quick, and then there's no air service. So that's why a lot of these carriers, and especially in Dillingham, and they're using a lot of Cherokee 6s, Saratogas, and 207s, which are beautiful, great, very capable aircraft. I'll never say a bad thing about a 207. Love them. 4,000 hours in one. I love them. No, they're good aircraft.
So you have a bit of experience with emergencies in the Navajo specifically.
A few, yes. So do you?
Well, I do. We've talked about that on the podcast before.
Okay, I haven't heard that story, but
I'll save it
on our next dinner we will do. Yes, I'd like that.
Absolutely.
I've been real lucky with some catastrophics that I've had. On both occurrences, I did not lose all my thrust. Which was huge.
Nice.
However, on the one, departing out of a certain village on the peninsula with 7 people in bags, not a lot of bags, but we were at full gross for sure, and on a climb out, going through 6,000 feet, and manifold pressure just decided to lose about 10 inches, and I'm like, oh, okay, what happened there? And I thought like maybe the passenger had hit one of the levers or something, because we're focusing on outside, we're trying to fly the airplane, and so you're not always paying attention to the gauges. You got to have your head outside the cockpit. And decided no, okay, so that's not it. So now you're turning around and trying to find the first available airport. You have people aboard. The aircraft is still flying fine, but the problem when you have an engine partial failure in any aircraft, first of all, you're looking for the first available aircraft, but you don't know how bad this partial failure is going to be. Number one, is it going to turn into a full catastrophic failure? Number two, could you have an engine fire? Number three, there's a number of things that could be going on. And when you're sitting in the cockpit looking at a dead engine or a partially dead engine, you have no clue what's going on underneath that cowl. What you do know is that you're trying all your emergency procedures. A lot of the times you're on high boost fuel to make sure the engine's getting enough fuel. That's sometimes not a great idea either.
Because it down.
Yeah, because if you have a broken fuel line or something, now all of a sudden you're spraying extra pressure of gas all through the cowling. So through talking with you and a lot of the other pilots, I'm not altogether certain that's such a great idea. Initially, if it's going to fix the problem and get you some horsepower back, fantastic. If it's not fixing anything, get rid of it, because you're not helping the matter.
That's a good point.
The other thing is, if you're 50 miles away from an airport and you're at a certain altitude, now you're trading airspeed for altitude. your one concern will always be, let's have as much airspeed as we can to get back to that airport, because again, you don't know what's going to happen along that longest 17 minutes of your life. Because, so you have an engine with a partial failure. And this was the second occurrence I had, but I'll tell you about the first one. That was a lot more benign, and the route was a lot shorter. But on this particular one, I had a full load, full fuel, full gross, not a lot of bags. So we were good, and we were good on the weight. So yes, it was going to fly in one. But I had partial thrust, so I hadn't caged the engine yet. But all the time I'm leaving 6,000 feet to go 55 miles against the wind now, because I had a tailwind. Now I'm against the wind. So now I'm down to about 125 knots, and 55 miles is a long way. 120, you're on 2 miles a minute. That's 25 minutes. Long time on one engine and descending. So what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to start a slight descent, and I'm going to get as much airspeed as I can, because I want to get this over as quick as I can, because I don't want any added problems. We still have partial thrust. I don't have an engine fire. I don't have a catastrophic, so I don't need to cage it yet. But you don't know yet. Can happen really quick, or it can drag out. So it wasn't a matter if, it was going to be when. So I traded that all the way, and by the time I got to about 5-6 miles out of my destination, I was down to like 300 feet. Well, now all of a sudden I got to figure out if it's going to climb again, because I had traded it so far. I just wanted to get there, and I knew I was close. So even at 300 feet, I knew the airplane was flying. It was 8 miles from the airport, but I still wanted to climb up and get to some sort of 700 or 800 feet to where I could my gear down and get myself situated. At 300 feet, we could have did it, but I traded that extra airspeed all the way. So instead of the 125 knots, I was making about 147, 145, which speeded things up a little bit. And the great thing was, the passengers didn't even know there was a problem. That was the good thing, except for the guy in the co-pilot seat. He knew there was a problem, because I was doing a lot of pilot stuff. And all of a sudden we turned around, so obviously there was something going on. But anyways, I got to 300 feet and I said, oh, okay, I better figure out if this thing can climb again, which it did. And speaking of those damn cowl flaps, I looked down there and noticed my cowl flaps were open the whole time. There was drag that I didn't need. That might have saved me 3 or 4 miles of more descent. You know what I'm saying? It all calculates into something. But I wasn't thinking about all that. I was thinking about, let's get this thing going in the right direction. Let's get some speed. Let's put a little more pressure on the good engine. Let's take a little pressure off the bad engine, and keep that thrust going. We don't have to cage it yet. All that stuff. And we landed. I found out we would climb, so that was good. I knew we could hold altitude. I wanted to see if it would climb, and it did. Of course, I looked down and the cowl flaps are open. Well, let's get rid of those right now. But long story short, it was a good ending, and the beautiful part of it was I was talking. I had basically a hive of Lake Clark airplanes surrounding me, and thank God, Aaron, bless his heart, told one of the pilots, "You go back and get those passengers." Because I said, "Well, just meet me in the lagoon and get 6." And they took 6 in right away. The 7th guy, he stayed with me, and Trevor Taylor, one of those kids that used to fly out there, he ended up flying in, where? Over in Africa. Anyways, long story, he showed up in Navajo about an hour later and took us to Port Allsworth, and Glenn said, "Just bring my Navajo in with your passenger." So I land about 8:30 at Merrill with Glenn's Navajo with a passenger in the back. And if you have ever told me I would have started my day in my Navajo and ended up my day in Glenn's Navajo flying, he says, and I said, "Okay, are you sure about that?" And Glenn says, "I have no doubt in my mind you're going to bring that airplane home." And I said, "Well, of course I did." But that's Glenn. I said, no, you take my airplane and just go. So, you know, it's crazy things like that happen to you. And I had the support, and I thank my lucky stars. And the thing about, and this is another thing that, you know, mentioned, you know, this whole brotherhood of the air services and stuff. It's not about being in competition. Mm-mm. Whatever's coming your way is going to come your way. Don't act like somebody moves into the place and they're going to take a piece of your business. They might take some of it, but you might take some of theirs too. Mm-hmm. And if you're not working together all the time, then you're not doing it right.
No.
And that is the big thing. And, you know, Glenn, you know, comes down to the Aleutians and provides a service that is needed.
Yep.
And I never felt like he was a threat ever. You know, to be honest, I hate to mention names on here, but you know, I just want that out there, is that all these air service need to stand together. And when Glenn has a problem, he's had, they lost landing gears in the Chignik Bay or Lagoon, and you know, I called Dima up right away. I don't remember if you remember Dima or not.
I never met him, but
okay, well, he was a legend in his own right.
Oh yeah.
But I called Dima and I said, hey, you need an airplane up there? I'm up there right now, and no charge. We'll move your people. You know, don't even worry about it. It's already done. Mm-hmm. So that's how Glenn and I mean, I knew him from when I was a kid, but, you know, he came down there and we've always just hit it off because he knew where I learned how to fly, and I always watched him as a kid. So, you know, he's a hell of a mentor, mm-hmm. and a role model. You know, he's a good role model.
Can't get to.
He does it right.
45,000 hours without having a thing or two.
You know that he's logged every hour, and it's in his logbook.
Really?
Every hour.
Huh.
So he got the Wilbur right as well.
Yep.
It wasn't the big party though that was done for Craig, and I wish it would have been, because I would have been there.
Yeah.
But it was a no-brainer because he logs every hour.
Huh.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I quit logging, I don't know, 10 years ago. FA calls me. I said, look at my scheduled duties. If you want my hours, just go look at those. You know, that's the thing. You know, you log your time, you make sure you're legal. Mm-hmm. You got your 3 night, you got your nights, you got your IFR currency, you got all this stuff. It's all documented. Mm-hmm. But that's tedious. But that is meticulous record keeping, and that's really what you need to be doing. Mm-hmm. So you take notes, John.
I've liked, as far as I know, I've liked every hour I've ever
Very
flown.
good.
Yeah.
Very good. I got lazy somewhere along, but I mean, I'm doing so much flying. You just, you know, I have it all in this booklets.
Yeah.
You know, I'd write it down in a book what I did, where I went and all that. But to transfer those over to the logbook, that's the problem. Yeah. So these are like, you know, logs that are available, but they're not a normal logbook. No. They're like those, you know, anyways. I know I'm going to jail for all this. It's fine. The FA comes to get me. That's fine. Really? I don't need to do this anymore? Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to come work for you now. We're going to show you how it's done.
So you were talking about the aspect of Alaska 135, which is that we're largely not competitive, at least from a pilot's perspective, and you're a pilot owner. Mm-hmm. We don't really see each other as competitive, but we frequently call each other for PIREPs or for a second look at the weather,
runway conditions, all kinds. I normally always get calls from Dan at AAT. I get calls from Glenn, Caden, the guys. I get calls from everybody. Mm-hmm. Denina even calls me. Really? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm more than happy to give them anything they need. Mm-hmm. And you're right. You know, that's how it works. I mean, you call somebody for information because it's a safety thing. Yep. And Last thing I want him to do is go take a King Air 200 into King Cove when you got 4 inches of muck there. Does he know that? No, because he doesn't go in there, ever.
Yep.
So he just thinks he's going to go bomb down there. I go, don't do it.
Yep.
Go to Cold Bay, figure out how to get him over there, and you're going to win. You take that King Air in there, it's going to be a monument.
No.
Don't do it.
Yep.
I've seen it happen.
Oh, yeah.
I can remember a time when Pen Air lost 2 Metros at St. George, I believe, before the runway was paved. The first Metro went in and got buried in the mud. Didn't wreck the airplane, but it wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. So they sent a second Metro. The definition of insanity. The second Metro got buried. Now they have 2 Metros.
Wait, okay, so the first one is on the runway?
I believe on the runway, or they got it towed off there. I don't know what happened, but they sent a second one on there and the same thing happened.
Oh.
Yeah, and I've seen Grant do it in King Cove before too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, pay attention, people.
Yeah.
First of all, the Metro is not any airplane you want to even have off of asphalt.
Really?
Yeah, it's a very small-wheeled aircraft with tall gear and great airplane.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Each aircraft has its own mission. And when you start going outside that aircraft's mission, it has capabilities that you are exceeding.
Yep.
And I try to tell this to pilots all the time. And part of the problem is the guys still take them in there, and then you get a bent aircraft or a wrecked aircraft, or they get it back home and something's wrong with it.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with it. You shouldn't have took the airplane over there in the beginning, and I'll tell you right what's wrong with the gear's not working right, because you probably bent something, or your micro switches are all screwed up, or this or that or the other thing. But hey, what do I know? I don't know nothing.
Well, that seems to be taking aircraft off mission seems to be a growing theme in Alaska because of the shrinking number of aircraft to choose from.
You're correct.
There are fewer and fewer small airplanes to choose from every year because there are fewer being made than are being wrecked.
No, you're correct.
And
absolutely. And they're not producing any aircraft to fill the niche or the gap.
That's the big thing. The 207 and the Navajo are the backbone of moving stuff through Alaska, and there are no modern successors.
No,
none.
No, and there needs to be.
Yeah.
The problem is with the liability and the cost nowadays, that aircraft probably costs you $5 million new. A new Navajo or something similar.
Yeah.
You kidding? And the Navajo is and part of the problem is that the Navajo is just that airplane that can go do about all of it. What it needs is a lot of love and a lot of maintenance and a lot of money thrown at it.
Yeah.
But there's guys that have tried to do it with the 402s and the 401s, the 411s. They just didn't have the payload, number one. They didn't have the horsepower, number two, and they didn't have the longevity or the ruggedness of the Navajo. That's what sets the aircraft apart. And not putting those airplanes down. Again, it's mission oriented.
Yeah, exactly.
You're running asphalt to asphalt out in the States with those aircraft, you do it all day long as you keep it within the parameters of the guidelines of the aircraft. But with the Navajo, I mean, you're always pushing that envelope because half the time you're coming out of a 2,000 foot strip with a load.
Yep.
And then the runways, you're sinking in a half an inch.
Yeah.
Which you didn't anticipate initially.
Right.
And you probably got full fuel and everything you didn't want to have because you didn't realize that the runway was soft, or nobody told you, or you got there and it was soft.
Right.
There's just all these things that are popping up, and this is what separates the guys that can get it done and can't. But and I will attribute a lot of my flying, maybe some of it's skill, but I got lucky, and God was riding co-pilot as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I will take that all day.
Amen.
A little luck will go a long way. I'll take luck all day.
Yeah.
But there's other things like just taxiing out of an airport with a dry, let's just say a dry field with gravel, and you turn downwind because you know you have to taxi down, and all of a sudden this big dust cloud pops up because you got this stupid wind that's quartering, and then all of a sudden you're like Charlie Brown's pig pen and you can't see anything. And you know you can only taxi so far, but you can't even see the side of the runway because there's such a dust cloud.
Yep.
And even at dead idle, it's still, you know, and then you're just like, oh God, what am I going to do here? And you're like just sort of gauging how far you've gone in your head, and then you try to turn the airplane around, and without smacking something or coming at the end of the runway or smacking a runway light, you make it, and you turn it in the wind, and dust cloud is gone. And you're like, oh, thank God I turned, because, you know, the end of the runway was 40 feet there, you know, and you couldn't see anything, but you had it in your head, sort of where it was at. Those calculations I don't like to go on.
No.
You're relying on blind luck at that point. But that's just stupid thing. You're not even in the air yet. You're having issues.
Yeah.
And it's because the guys were late, and the wind went from 20 to 35.
Yep.
And you call them and say, hey guys, we're pushing 40 knots here. You need to get back here if you want to get out here, because I'm leaving one way or the other.
Yeah.
So they show up and they wonder, why did we get rushed? Well, we came in here, it was 20. I told you the wind was going to come up. You need to get done and get going. But everybody's just lollygagging around, no sense of urgency, except the guy that's driving the airplane.
Yep.
So, and you've been down this road.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it drives you crazy because you have passengers that aren't realizing what the weather's doing. And there's always the guy that wants to, oh, it's fine there, it's good. Or it's always the guy in the place you're going to. The weather's fine.
Yeah, but he's got some package on your plane or something.
Yeah, or he wants to get out there because he's got a wedding to go to.
Yeah, exactly.
Or his wife is pissed off and she wants him home yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's pretty good here. Well, it just got bad when you got here.
Yep.
No, it was bad when I left.
I was watching the cameras.
SOB, but okay. There you go. I usually charge a little extra for the flips. I don't mind doing it anymore. So, well, you're going to get clipped on this one. I'm real fair about my billing, but sometimes you just, you know, I've had corporate customers that, you know, they just don't get it because they don't have their finger on the pulse.
Yeah. And
you got to educate them along the way. And after a few of those rides, when they're just total crap weather and you got them done, but they said, yeah, we won't do this again. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for it. And I said, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Sorry you had to find out the hard way, but here we are.
Yep.
So that's about it, John. I mean, in a nutshell, you know, it's all calculated risk.
That's so when you listen to especially part 121 passenger briefings, those annoy me so much.
Oh yeah.
Your safety is our number one priority. If it was, we wouldn't be going on this flight. It's obviously not. Obviously, that's a lie. Obviously, there's some calculated risk. Everybody here on the airplane, flying the airplane, fielding the airplane, everybody has accepted a higher level of risk.
Absolutely.
We're trying to reduce that.
Yeah, we're trying to minimize it.
Yeah, we're trying to manage it to the extent possible. But all of flying is just doing your best to manage the risk that you can and not accept the risk that's above.
No, you're absolutely right. And the one thing I tell new pilots, and I tell myself, and I tell high-time pilots, I said that airplane goes just as good the other way as it goes that way. You have the ability to turn that aircraft around at any time.
Yep.
And don't be afraid to use it. Out of my career, I've turned around very few times, and when I did, I was damn glad I did.
Yeah.
There was times I turned around and probably could have made it. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I had sort of a gut feeling, I'm just not liking this. Some of the worst conditions that you can fly in when you're low level and you're trying to get into some of these bush airports that are surrounded by bays and bodies of water is the glass calm conditions.
Yeah.
Those are scary because you lose reference.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So now you're relying completely on instruments at 200 feet, even though you have visual.
Right.
But you don't have visual because you don't have that reference. And flat light conditions are the same.
Exactly.
Flat light conditions, yeah.
You rely on your peripheral vision
Exactly.
for so much of flying. This is why, like, simulators actually don't really do a good job at stick and rudder stuff. I have a pretty good simulator, but anytime somebody comes to use it, I warn them, don't try to do landings, don't try to do air work.
Yeah.
Like, it's that sense of the peripheral vision, and there are a lot of other cues, the kinesthesiology, the feel of the stick, how much it's pushing against your hand, the
back pressure,
wind speed,
forward pressure, yeah, you bet.
But
turbulence.
As soon as you get into those either flat light conditions, the whiteout conditions, or the calm water, it's wild. You feel like you've gone blind.
Well, you become that much more aware.
Yeah.
So now you were already in a bad situation probably because the weather wasn't that great. And now all of a sudden you have extra added element of danger or whatever you want to call it. And so now you become hypersensitive. So every little, you're really paying attention to everything. And you're happy when you see a side of a hillside or something, or a beach. You can have some sort of, because when you're getting into that, you're just, I was in it yesterday, just coming in and out of squalls, and the squalls aren't that thick, and you can see the ground all of a sudden. You get in these little whiteouts things, and you don't really know if it's going to end or not. You get in there and it's like that. So now all of a sudden you're going to plan B, plan C, plan D, and that is the one thing you better have in the back of your pocket is you better have about 6 options out there.
Oh yeah.
You better be thinking about fuel. You better be thinking about ice. You better be thinking about wind. It's not going to do you a bit of good if you're going to be land somewhere and you got a 45 knot crosswind. You better be thinking about that one other place 20 miles away that has a runway that will be into that wind.
Right.
Thinking about it. I don't care if it doesn't have services or not. You better go put the airplane where you're going to keep it in one piece. Deal with the rest of it later.
Yeah. Like, you can get fuel flown in if you have to.
Exactly.
But if you
no, you're right. Or run up the road another 50 or 60 miles if you have to. But if you don't have the fuel, you get yourself in a situation. And that's another part about flying where we do a lot of times, we don't have that luxury where, we're at bingo fuel and Coal Bay is down, Sandpoint's down. Now what are we doing? And Hayden doesn't have fuel. Now what do we do? Go back to King Salmon? It's a long way home.
Yeah.
It's a long way to backtrack for fuel when you don't even know if you can get in there or not.
Right.
Dillingham, you're at all these, so you have enough options in the back of your head. Don't get yourself into that position.
Yeah.
So before you get into that position, you better be thinking about those options and make sure that you're heading back somewhere before you get to that bingo stage.
That thinking ahead, one of the most salient examples is flying into Chignik Bay, because a lot of times you'll have 30 gusting 40 knots, but it'll be within 20 degrees of landing 2-0, and you're feeling like a champ. It's moderate turbulence, but you're getting in there fine.
The bay is blowing 60.
Yeah.
Right outside. It's feather white.
Yeah, exactly.
You know how this is. This was yesterday.
But the thing is, like, what are you going to take off into that wind, into the bay, into where there's downdrafts all through the bay and you can see black water all through the bay? Or are you going to take off with a gusting 45 knot tailwind? Now, I've turned down the bay when I could see it and I could have landed no problem.
Right. Making that turn out of there is the problem.
Oh, Yeah.
I did it yesterday, and it was the same sort of scenario. And it was the gusting 30 plus stuff.
Yep.
And in Navajo, you just don't have the luxury of taking off fair wind. Now, Glenn would take off fair wind all day because he's got 1,000, he's got 1,700 horsepower.
Yeah.
So the airplane will do it even with a load. Is it a great idea? Probably not. But can be done.
Yep.
Sure, a lot better than trying to take off towards that valley and then trying to make that turn underneath that bluff. And yeah, it's just, it's all this calculated risk. It's all fine and dandy till you lose one.
Yep.
You lose one, now you get chance full.
Yep. Yep.
And it's a scary thing. It can happen anytime.
Yeah. Yes.
So getting into turbine aircraft and the more stability, the more risk assessment that goes into that flight is a good thing for safety. And a lot of people use the risk assessment sheets that, it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's good. Are you going to get the flight done and make some money? Probably not. There's the other factor. Is the company going to be around in 6 months because we can't go flying because we're on a risk assessment?
Right.
And for the smaller carriers, we don't have to abide by the risk assessment, but we're always doing risk assessment in our head.
Exactly.
And I've got to the point in my career after 22,000 hours that I turned down quite a few flights that I just normally would probably have done in my younger days. I just won't do it anymore. I probably can do it, but you're digging real deep to go to get it done, and you're going to have to work real hard to get it done. And, it's not about the working hard. I just don't want to work that hard. I will work that hard if I have to.
Right.
But I just don't want to have to, put everything on the line that bad to go get it done. And,
I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. It was in Ferry Pilot. Have you read that book? Incredible book.
But I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that to anyone watching or listening. He talks about his visualization of luck is that everybody starts out with a full luck bag and an empty experience bag, and every time that you go into the shit and you get out, you take a little piece out of your luck bag and you put it in your experience bag. But the trick is you don't know how big your luck bag is.
Oof. Boy, you said a mouthful there.
And so, I've even in my, I have a fraction of the hours that you have, but even over the last 4 years that I've been flying in Alaska, I've seen myself get much, much, much more conservative. Like last year, 2 years ago, I would have gone in to prove it. Well,
you're proving yourself. No,
exactly.
I totally get it. Like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then after you do it, they go, "Boy, that was really a bad idea. I wish I wouldn't have did that."
I'm like,
because it was just horrible. And I'm just glad the airplane stayed together. And hats off to Walter Beach and Clyde Cessna and all these other people, and what's his name, Bill Piper, and
Oh yeah.
But that's the thing. You do things and you get away with it.
Yep.
But you learn along the way.
Oh yeah.
And like the old timers used to say, somebody passes away or something happens to them, I guess his luck ran out.
Yep. And
there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah.
So here's to all the guys that hope the luck never runs out on you.
Yeah.
May everybody fly with tailwinds and safe skies. We're all family, and anytime we lose somebody, it hits pretty hard. Whether or not we knew them or not, it's not fun.
Craig Emery, who you were talking about earlier, when I first started over at Spurnack, he put his arm around me and he pointed out to the Alaskan range and he said, "Do you see those mountains over there?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "They're full of pilots who are better than me."
Oh boy, you said a mouthful there.
Yeah, like there is a huge element of luck to it. But there's also, you absolutely have to be learning from other people's mistakes. You have to learn from your own mistakes as quick as possible, because you just can't afford to make the same mistake twice.
No, you're right.
But you have to be on top of learning from the mistakes of others if you want any sort of longevity in here, in this environment, because it's not like 121.
No, you're exactly right. And, after you fly for a lot of years and you become that guy, such as Glenn, myself, and I'll never call myself that. But the thing about it is I get a lot of people in airplanes says, oh yeah, we already know you're the best. And I always tell them, don't ever use that word. Nobody's the best. I said, in this business, you have to be humble. And you make sure that you take humble with you to work every day.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're going to have a problem. You can't fly around thinking you're that good, because you're not. You are not that good. Yep. You are somebody that can have issues, vulnerability, and problems that can arise in that flight. And what makes you good is how you handle it. And your skill level. But there are times where even the best cannot overcome what's getting thrown at you that quick. But you might get close. But you better be thinking about it before it happens. So when you're rotating, when you're at, all these procedures are there for a reason. Your go, your no-go. Even if that one of those even sniffs failure, abort. Yep. If it's happening right at your worst transition of flight, gear up, aircraft's dirty, you start sniffing a failure, you better be thinking about caging that engine right now and be thinking about plan B right away. You don't have time. You have 0 seconds to think about it. You're not going to fix that airplane. You're not going to fix that engine. You're not going to. But there's problems like, let's say you have a turbo failure. Well, now you haven't lost your engine, but it's acting like it's lost.
It feels
so
like.
Now you think, okay, well, maybe. And if you, and I hate to bring this up because this is like technical stuff that people might not understand on this podcast, but I mean, you could lean that engine and get your full power back on a turbo failure.
Really?
I learned this the hard way. It happened to me on takeoff. I had a turbo failure and took the airplane, and luckily it happened right away. So I taxied off the airplane and went, what's going on with this engine? So I started messing around with it and leaned the airplane out and found out I could get full power out of it. Where was I taking it? Right to the maintenance shop, 4 miles away, but I still had to fly it over there.
Yep.
So, because the guys ain't coming over here, then that's your other problem. I mean, how do you get a sick airplane home? I don't know how many times I've flown a sick airplane home.
Yeah.
In the middle of winter on a bad day. That's the other problem. I mean, all these things that these charter pilots have to deal with, and half the time they're out stranded in the middle of nowhere. You're not getting a ferry permit. You're not getting anything out there. You barely can make a phone call.
Yeah.
You got that thing started. You're going to go fly it to somewhere where you have some facilities. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just not going to happen. You're probably going to freeze to death out there anyways. Nobody's answering the phone. You're out in the middle of bump F. This is the problem with a lot of the, what happens being a charter pilot in Alaska. You didn't ask for it. Well, some mechanical started to happen. Well, you're going to get the airplane back to either its home base or somewhere incredibly close, or somewhere where at least you're going to have a warm bed or somewhere. But these are the things that happen, and this is all part of the learning experience. So you could tell 5,000 different stories after 22,000 hours, or whatever time you got, you can tell 10 stories, and the outcome is always the same. You're fighting for your life. You're trying to get the airplane back to where it's going. Nobody knows what's going on. You call the office and go, "Oh, bring the airplane home." They don't have their finger. Well, just go here and get fuel. But I can't get a hold of the guy. But he'll be there to meet you, which he never is, and they never show up.
No.
And the office says, "Oh, we got this covered." No, you don't have it covered. And no, the guy didn't show up, and no, I have to make my own decisions out in the field.
Yep.
And, you know this, and it's an age-old story with the flying in Alaska. So my advice to anybody is just be prepared to do everything you can to either get your ass home or get that airplane home, and if you don't, make sure you get to somewhere where you're going to be able to have some either services or a friend to pick you up or something, and do not rely on company to help you, because half the time you are on your own. Mm-hmm. And this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
As much as they think they're helping, sometimes they're just not, because they just, they don't have their finger on the pulse. Until you actually are down there doing it yourself, they just don't understand.
Well, yeah, you're out there. For one, in 135, most of the people that are working out of the office aren't rated in any way. There's no dispatcher rating for 135. They're flight followers.
Right.
They're very helpful in the
logistics.
main. Yeah.
Coordinating.
Yeah, they're calling your passengers ahead of time. They're calling for fuel.
Which never show up on time.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. That's why you fly low over the village and then loop back.
Oh, they're here. Well, we were supposed to be at the airport 10 minutes ago. What went wrong with that plan? Anyways, but you're right. But continue. No.
But yeah, so there's a certified 121 dispatcher has access to more information, has more tools, and more knowledge and experience. Correct. Whereas a 135 flight follower, which is the kind of parallel there, has typically less experience, fewer tools, and
typically no experience.
Yeah, a lot of times they're
except Dima. Dima was master. Now, so that's what really sets the dispatchers apart. And this is really an age-old problem for Alaskan carriers in general, is the dispatching. The dispatcher will make or break your company. And this is why Aleutian, and this is why Raven had so many problems. They had horrible dispatchers. There's just times you don't send an airplane because you're going to go down and burn a bunch of fuel and you're not going to make it.
Right, yeah.
Just any excuse in the world is better than going to pay the crew, wear and tear in the aircraft, burn all that fuel, and then end up coming home with pissed off passengers because you didn't make it.
And you were in the air for 4 hours.
More like 6.
Oh.
Yeah, because you refueled and tried to make it at second. So this is part of the problem, is that, and you bring up an excellent point, the dispatching, that is 90% of your battle half the time. Pilots, they go get it done, but they get told what to do.
Yeah.
So in my company, I'm basically my own dispatcher. I know when to go, when not to go. Right. I'm not going to go burn that fuel if I know it's not going to happen. Or if I'm going to go do it, I know I'm going to stop somewhere short, be able to hole up at my buddy's house or my own house and say, we'll sit here tight until we have something we can work with.
Exactly.
But a lot of the carriers do not have that luxury.
No.
So they have to dispatch these aircraft, and when they do, they end up coming home with their tail between their legs, and now you're out all that money, and you do that 10 times a month. It doesn't pencil out very good. And we've seen a number of carriers go down because of this respect.
And I just want to be clear, I'm not like calling out 135 flight followers and the office crew, but it's a different system legally. Legally, it's a different system in 135 versus 121. And so for those who aren't clear, 135 is small operators, most of what happens up here in Alaska.
9 passengers or less.
Exactly. And you can operate with a single pilot, versus 121 is what you typically think of as the airlines. Those are all the larger jets, 2 pilot, and they have a certificated dispatcher who has basically all the ground school of a pilot, and then access to quite a few different tools, and they have typically 6 different computer screens.
Sure.
And they're watching all sorts of stuff, a couple of flights at a time, but they're watching all sorts of information for you in your flight, and they're pulling that in, and they're able to give you additional resources that you can't access in the airplane. Whereas a 135 flight follower is there to make sure that you get from point to point, and they're also trying to coordinate passengers and cargo and freight, but they don't have the training that the 121 operators, the 121 dispatchers do. And should that be required, it would be financially crippling for a lot of smaller operators.
No question about it. And the beauty of the 121 dispatchers is that they're following all the parameters. Mm-hmm. That's the key. I mean, you're following the parameters of the weather, runway conditions, the dispatch, the people meeting the airplane, everything is covered. Mm-hmm. And that is the same thing that the 135 dispatcher is trying to do, but on a much smaller scale.
Right.
And there's your problem. And they're not as trained. But some of them become very, very good at what they do.
Absolutely.
And when they become that good, that is just huge for the small airline.
It is.
And there's very few people who can do it. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is communication with your customers. So huge. When you become really inverse with your customers, and everybody knows everybody by first name basis, they can pick up a phone, they can get boots on the ground report. Mm-hmm. All this is huge for the pilot, because half the time the automatic weather reporting systems, which are called AWOSs, are given false readings.
Yeah, or they're out for the last 4 months, all the way from pilot point to sand point.
Yeah, so how do we get weather? Well, we got to call somebody to go down to that airport and give us a hands and eyes on report. Yep. And these is where the dispatchers become huge. Mm-hmm. But they have to have the urgency to do it. Yep. And if they're not doing it, and I'm not saying all of them don't do it, I mean, obviously that's their job, but you actually got to get on that phone and call somebody. And if you can't get a hold of anybody, call someone else. Yep. So it becomes this big chess game. You're trying to get this aircraft to something, so you have to keep moving pieces out of the way, such as weather, such as this, such as reports, such as that. And the worst thing you can do is have your guy 10 minutes out and you still don't have that report. Yep. So now he's going in there relying on an AWOS, which is giving him a false reading, and he gets there and either misses the approach or hits a wall of fog, turns the aircraft around. Now you got a whole new set of problems. Where are we going with the aircraft? What are we doing with the passengers? What are we doing there? So this is the demise of a lot of air taxis. They're not prepared for these delays, for these weather cancellations, for the aircraft in flight that have to get turned around. It's all not cost effective, number one. It's frustrating for the pilot, number two. And at the end of the day, the bottom line just sinks. Yep. So, but this is all part of the game. This is flying in Alaska, like we discussed before. Wait 10 minutes. That same flight 10 minutes later probably could have been conducted into the airport safely. But at the time when he was there was a huge squall there, and he couldn't see anything. And for safety reasons, he turned the airplane around for good reason. Yep. And that was the smartest thing that pilot could have did. Yep. And he went to an alternate airport, either waited there or went back to Anchorage and said, it's just not happening today. Only 30 minutes later to hear that it was clear and beautiful in there. Happened to both of us many times. Oh, yeah. That's Alaska. You just grin and bear it, put a smile on, go home. Thank God everybody's safe. Airplane's in one piece. You did your job.
So if somebody's either grown up here or down in the States looking to come up here and start in on this as a pilot, what is your advice for how to get started?
Well, it's not so hard anymore to get on with the carriers now. Like when we were growing up, you needed a lot of Alaska time. You needed this, that. To get on the majors was horrible. You needed a lot of time. You needed a bachelor's degree.
Yep.
You needed all that. Now, if you got 10 minutes of turbine time and a pulse, you're hired.
Yeah.
And before, it used to be slave labor with the majors, even the regionals, where you would be a co-pilot or first officer, and basically getting paid about $1,200 a month to work 80-hour weeks.
Yeah.
Because they wanted you to get that turbine time that they were going to provide for you, or that jet time. Now, a lot of guys are hired on the majors with 500 to 1,000 hours. If you have some twin time, a little bit of turbine time, you can get on with a lot of the majors. And they start the FOs at 130,000 a year. That's pretty good money for a kid. But my advice to anybody starting out is your number one obstacle is cost to get your tickets. It's not like it used to be. I mean, before, for $3,000, you get your private pilots.
Really?
$2,000, that's many years ago, mind you. $2,500 later, you had your instrument, $1,500, you know. So the cost has risen dramatically. So that part of it is, you know, it's prohibitive. But if you have the money to get into it and you're serious about flying, so one thing about learning to fly, if you're going to learn to fly, you need to fly.
Yep.
You can't just go in and fly 2 weeks, take 3 weeks off, and go back and fly 2 weeks later, because you're going to learn you're going to forget what you learn.
Yep. Absolutely.
And this is a problem for kids that want to come in and then I'll just take a little break. Well, I'm going to come back to it. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. You either get it or you don't.
Right.
And once you are flying, you need to stay flying.
Yep.
If you're not flying, the worst thing you can do is take breaks, because it makes you sloppy, it makes you rusty. And, you know, I've had my own issues with this recently, and I'll tell you what, it's the worst thing you can do is, I guess the moral to this story is, if you do take a break, when you go back into it, you need to take baby steps.
Yeah.
And you better make sure your weather's good. You better check everything you can.
Yeah.
And don't go bombing into bad weather. And this has happened. I've known friends that have crashed airplanes. I've had issues with the lag time in flying and then going back into it and thinking that you still have the chops and the skills, which you do. But you're not up to speed.
Yeah.
When you're flying into somewhere every day and the weather's crappy and you're doing it day after day, you have those chops. You take a month off and go try to do that, you are lost.
Oh, yeah.
Your radio work sucks. Your decision making is not there. All of it is not there because you just haven't been doing it. It's there somewhere, but you're not pulling it out because you haven't been doing it.
Yeah, you haven't been getting the reps in. You're rusty.
Yeah, you're rusty. So pay attention to that.
Yep.
That's another thing. It's like we talked about. A new airport is your pilot's worst enemy. You don't know the area. You don't know the terrain. You don't know the procedures. You don't know any of that. So you're going in there like a toddler. You're basically sipping a fire hose, trying to get up to speed to try to figure this out and get in there. A lot of this is research on the ground. Research all of this on the ground before you go fly. You don't want to be pulling frequencies and all this stuff up when you're in the air 10 miles out going, wow, I don't even know what frequency, what's the AWAS, you know, all this. You gotta have that down first. Write all that stuff down. Have it somewhere where you can look at it on the way.
Little notepad with all the frequencies along the way.
So, you know, a lot of that, but again, lag time and not flying is another one. And if you're going to learn, going back to the question, you need to get it done and get through it and get it done. Move on to your next rating.
Yep.
Try to find out a sweetheart deal to build some time. A lot of it could be just scrubbing bellies on airplanes. That's what we used to do. I don't know if that really happens anymore, but, you know, go mentor in a shop and maybe work on airplanes for a deal to fly the airplanes.
Yeah.
That's another one.
Nice.
So, you know, getting those hours, because again, it's cost prohibitive. A lot of people don't have that kind of money anymore. No. I mean, to get all your ratings now costs almost $100,000.
Oh, yeah.
Before, we could knock it out in with 20.
Jeez.
You know, but, you know, gas was $1 something a gallon.
Yep.
Now it's $10 a gallon. So,
Yep.
you know, those are the problems. But I would say right now aviation is at the best point it would ever be for a new pilot to get into a career that has longevity, financial rewards, and just an overall good career that you're going to see the world and stuff. But one thing about being a pilot, you better understand that you're going to be living it and breathing it. And if you have anybody along for the ride, you better understand that they're going to be living it and breathing it. So you better make that perfectly clear to your other half.
Oh, yeah.
That it's what we call it around here is a shit show.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, yeah. Oh, I'll be gone for 3 days at the Pribilofs. Huh? When are we going back to Anchorage? Next month. Wait a minute, I came down here for 2 days. How'd that all turn into a month? But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you just never know. As an on-demand charter pilot, you are always going to be, what is known as a glorified taxi driver.
Oh, yeah.
So when the phone rings, you go, because that's how you make the money. Where you're going, you don't care.
No.
Long as the airplane doesn't know you're flying over water, it doesn't know it's flying over mountains, it doesn't know any of that.
Yep.
You know. Just make sure you're safe. You check every aspect for safety on that flight, weather, terrain. It doesn't hurt to call another pilot that's been there and say, hey, what do I need to know about this place?
Yep.
That's huge. He's going to give you some local knowledge that you would not have known otherwise.
Yeah.
And that might be something that save your life.
Absolutely.
So these are all the little things that will help you along the way. And as I always tell the mechanics that work on my aircraft, and we got a lot of great guys that work on the aircraft, but there's times they just don't know what's going on with it. I said, pick up a phone. Pick up a phone. Sometimes the egos are too big in the room to do this.
Yep.
And I said, if you don't pick up the phone, I'm going to. And I have all my gurus on hot dial.
Yep.
I regularly go around this town and give money away just so they'll pick that phone up for a reason.
Yep.
So I come back with a solution. So the moral of this whole thing is, don't be afraid to pick that phone up and get some information. Don't be too proud to call somebody. If you don't know something, there's somebody out there that does.
Absolutely.
You pick that phone up and you call. Whether it's maintenance, whether it's flight conditions, whether it's airports, whether it's this, whether it's that, whether it's, would you do it?
Yeah.
There's the other thing. I call Glenn all the time and say, would you go in there? One time out of 1,000, Glenn will say, nope, I wouldn't go in there.
Yeah, and of course.
But then he'd tell me, but you would. I said, no, I wouldn't, Glenn. You're not going, I'm not going. I might have did it before, but I'm a little older and a little smarter now. But that's the beauty of it.
Yep.
You use your resources. And that's what I would tell any new pilot. Every resource available. You're up and coming. You're at the mercy of the gods.
Yep.
So those resources are going to help you. You use them, and be proud to use them.
It's so wild how different, like you go down to Sandpoint, and 20 degrees difference in the wind direction can mean a totally fine day, or you've got huge rollers on short final, and you won't know it unless somebody told you or you're watching the water. And the same thing with King Cove. Like there's a very specific angle where the wind.
You found this out, did you?
Yeah.
I think I told you about this little wormhole I found.
Yeah, exactly.
In Northwest, where you can. It's like a 40-degree. Or you don't go. Final. You kind of go off the hill and you 40-degree, and then you get. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And not only that, even in cruise, you could 20 degrees. Might pick you 15 knots up.
Yep.
And you're not losing that much on your course.
No.
And I tried to tell this to a couple of the kids, Glenn's pilots. I said, hey, try try go 15 degrees this direction. See if you can get a look, because we're at 147 knots.
Yep.
Hey, cocks are, all of a sudden we're at 157.
Yep.
You just gained 10 knots.
Yeah, exactly.
But these little things that you learn along the way.
Yep.
So, it's interesting you bring that up, because that's true. You try a little bit different things, and every approach is a little bit different. When it's blowing a certain wind, well, don't do it the way you always do it. There's a little better way to do it over here.
Yep.
But maybe you find this out the hard way, and you find it out on your own, or you talk to somebody and say, hey, no, you should just go a little bit over towards the south there, and then you'll be fine in there. And half the time I'll tell you, or Glenn will tell you, said, but the only way we found that out was the hard way.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's flying in the States is a beautiful thing. Flying all over the country is a beautiful thing. I've done many flights. I've flown the LA Basin, Grand Canyon, Vegas, Florida, East Coast, Midwest, Northwest, all over, and all of it is a challenge. And one thing somebody has to remember is that you could fly up here and think all this horrible weather and all that. Well, Alaska has its weather, but flying down in the States in, say, spring or fall or even summer, it can be incredibly treacherous. Yep. With the thunderstorms, and the storm lines, the
squall lines.
Well, the squall lines, they can stretch 1,500 miles. It's not just a wall; it's a wall, and it's an impassable wall. Yep. Unless you can get to altitude, sometimes you can't outrun it there either. So that weather scares the shit out of me more than any Alaskan weather. Alaskan weather I can handle because I know what I'm doing and I know I've dealt with it. You go down there, you need to raise that bar even further now.
Oh, yeah.
If there's any sort of thunderstorms out there that are not isolated that you can see and avoid, that's fine. But if you got an embedded thunderstorm, you are playing with a bad situation.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, because you don't know what you're flying in. No. Even with a storm scope, you don't know what you're getting into. Oh, when's the last time your electronics lied to you? Daily.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, come on, man. You're going on, 1960s technology basically to find this storm cell. Yep. It's the same technology. It hasn't upgraded. It's the same thing. They just made it look a little prettier. Oh, now it has colors. Great. Okay. So, that's the thing. It doesn't matter where you're flying, you need to raise that bar for situational awareness, your weather, as far as the risk in the weather and all of that. And, like the Northwest can be some of the toughest flying you'll ever do. Fall and springtime, your icing conditions there are horrible. Horrible. You try to go over to Wenatchee and cross that Cascade Range, there's caravans that haven't made it. I mean, it's dangerous. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Any of these light aircraft, medium-sized twins, unless you're flying a turboprop that can get to 24,000 feet, you are going to get into some ice that you are not going to be able to handle. Yeah. And unless you're really urgent about turning that aircraft around and getting back to where you weren't getting it, you're going to have a problem real quick. And you're surrounded by mountainous terrain, heavy forested dirt. It's a bad idea. So, and that whole Cascade Range all the way down to the Sierra Nevadas, all that stuff, that's all the same. So there's dangerous flying there, dangerous flying in the Midwest, flat as can be. But, you got thunderstorms. And you got the Rockies, Montana, Colorado. Those are 14,000 feet. Unless you're in a turbocharged aircraft, you're not getting over those. You're going through those passes. You're talking about mountain wave. You're talking about some severe turbulence on a good day. So all these things you have to keep in mind. I mean, we talk about Alaska all the time, but a lot of these kids are going to cut their teeth down in the States and do some flying down there. Be aware of all of this stuff. Mountain wave can be some of the scariest stuff you'll ever encounter.
Oh, yeah.
You remember me talking about it in our last class at Lake Clark?
Yep.
you're fat and happy, and all of a sudden the airplane's down to 120 knots and things aren't looking so good.
Yeah.
And you've been there.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, it's just, and then there's days you're in that same route and there's wind around and you don't want to get anything.
Yeah.
You're like going, okay, I'm waiting for it, nothing. So Mother Nature has a mind of its own. Be prepared for it. That's all I can say. And then all the new pilots out there, go for your dreams. Just you go own that airplane. Go fly that airplane. Don't let it fly you. You fly it. And you'll get to where you need to be. And we need more pilots, so, you know, and we need more controllers.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Anyways, John, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you, sir.
Theo Chesley, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, I am more than happy to do it, and this has just been a heck of a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you.